Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Coffin. I'm here at the January 2019 edition of the Metal Investors Forum. I'm going to have a little talk here with Ian Bliss. He's the CEO of Northern Shield. It's a company that I invited to this MIF. Ian's got a very early stage, very interesting epithermal, low sublimation epithermal story in the Maritimes, basically Nova Scotia and Gas Bay. This was a bit of a departure for you and your management group, Ian. I mean, you want to give me like the 2-minute version of how you went from middle of nowhere northern Quebec magmatic to this stuff?
Absolutely. As I say, I was actually down there. A prospector approached me with a cobalt project that he had, and I thought maybe there's some nickel associated with that, which is obviously what our wheelhouse is. So I went down to have a look at the cobalt, and he started talking about gold, and initially I was not interested in that, assuming he was talking about Maguma Group. Not that there's anything wrong with Maguma Group, but it's not what we were going to go to Nova Scotia for. So, but he dropped a few words in there that kind of piqued my attention, and so I asked for more information, and they actually said, "Oh, I can't give you more because the ground's not staked, and it's such a big area, I can't afford to stake it." So I actually gave him my credit card to go and stake the ground, and finally he divulged the information that we needed, and to say there's very early on we realized that we're dealing with a low sulfidation epithermal system which had never been found in Nova Scotia before, and very different from the Maguma Group.
Well, this stuff was literally unheard of. There was nothing there. Yeah. Nobody had really worked on it, but you guys managed to bring it along pretty rapidly. I mean, you got to the stage of actually making some hard rock discoveries just before the snow started.
That is correct. And again, this goes back to being in a wheelhouse and using a model-driven approach for exploration. I say that there's a very large property, about 250 square kilometers, good access with the Trans-Canada Highway, but still a large area to cover. But you just go back to your basic exploration techniques, starting with your stream sediments and till samples, and as soon as we started following up on those anomalies, we found the boulders and the rivers. You follow up the boulders, and you found the outcrop, as you say, just before the first snow came. So we were pretty happy with the progress we made, and now we're poised, I think, as soon as the snow goes this season, to get on the ground and hit the ground running, because we know where there's a lot more outcrop and rocks to follow up on.
Well, and the other thing I think of great interest that I think a lot of people will probably be able to get excited about here, it's your most recent acquisition. I mean, you put out news on it this morning, actually. The stuff in the Gas Bay region. I mean, I know once you sort of got onto Shot Rock, you started thinking about the whole belt of rocks, and that led you to this other area. Yep. It's not really that far away, but it's in the Gas Bay, Quebec. Can you give us a bit of an overview of what you just picked up there?
Yes, absolutely. It's initially based on some very high stream sediment samples from the Quebec government's database. Some of these stream sediment samples are up to 100,000 ppb, so that's 100 grams or roughly 3 ounces per ton in stream sediment samples. So highly anomalous. And again, in this particular case, it was coincident with a very distinct regional fault, the Boss Fault. And not just that, it's in a particular slight sort of bow in the fault or a flexure, which of course if it's moving along that fault, that flexure can create dilatant zones. Mineralizing fluids love dilatant zones, and so there's three things there. There's the highly anomalous stream sediment samples, there's a fault, and there's a flexure in the fault. And yet, despite all these criteria, there seems like there's been almost no work done on this specific claim group whatsoever.
And you mentioned today in your talk that there's quite high-grade stuff just in the till, in the dirt. Yep. That's also in this area. Unusually high numbers, really.
Absolutely, and that's why we actually went back to stake some of these till samples that are anomalous in gold just to the north of the main property, because we actually think they got pushed there from the fault, because the fault is up ice from these sources. But then we looked at these samples that they're so high grade that maybe there's even a resource that we can get out of the till, whether that's at the end of the day a large scale mineable resource, or whether that's something smaller but high grade that we potentially can finance Northern Shield down the road by extracting a small amount of that gold from the till. We're not a gold miner as such, as you know. We're an exploration company, so I don't see this as mining. But we have to look at this a little bit more in detail in the coming days. But there is an opportunity to potentially extract some of that gold from the till. But then again, perhaps I've been watching too much Gold Rush Alaska.
But I mean, interestingly, given the scale, and 100,000 ppb silt anomalies is that's a pretty wild number. And 14 grams in till is also a pretty wild number. There's almost no exploration history.
No, there's not, and I say not only do we see the gold in the chemistry, but the past assessment reports clearly identify gold grains in the overburden. These gold grains have little pieces of quartz still attached to them, little pyrite and arsenopyrite grains attached to them, so these would weather off extremely quickly. So these gold grains haven't traveled far at all. So we think the likely source is that flexure in the fault zone, which the main portion of the property sits along.
Okay, and even though it's wintertime, you guys aren't inactive. I think you're going to be doing some geophysics at Shot Rock like very quickly here.
Exactly. The next step will be doing a high-resolution airborne magnetic survey over Shot Rock. We were planning to undertake a same survey over Grandpa Boss, and we may still do, but just thinking about the overburden aspect, we may reprioritize our funding and decided to chase after the till at Grandpa Boss rather than the airborne magnetics. But airborne magnetics at Shot Rock starting mid-February, and then we can interpret that data over the rest of winter and get ready for the spring.
Okay, I mean, I think it's a great early stage story. I think maritime epithermal is going to become a thing.
Yeah.
Ian doesn't have a lot of company right now, but I think he's going to have more. I know there's a couple of private companies focused on the same thing in the region, and you got news flow starting. I mean, I think 2019 is going to be a great year for Northern Shield. This is a story you want to get yourself understanding now, before the real work starts and the real data starts coming back. Because especially Grandpa Boss, I mean, those are crazy numbers. I don't know what they mean. That's what you're trying to find out this year is what they mean.
Yeah.
But it's a hell of a target.
Yeah.
Great grades. So thanks for coming by and telling us about this new project and Shot Rock, which the target just seems to keep getting bigger.
No, exactly. Thanks for having me back, and we look forward to keeping you all updated as we go through.
Okay. Thank you, Ian.